Welcome, everyone. It's a Wrap with Rap. I am your host, Ron Rappaport. I would like to thank all of our listeners, viewers, supporters, and sponsors for making this podcast such a success. The podcast is being heard and viewed in all 50 states, all provinces of Canada, and over 70 countries around the world. Please visit our website, it's a wrapwithrap.com, for all the episodes and previews of upcoming podcasts and find products and services offered by our sponsors. This podcast features people who have overcome life's challenges and adversities, people who can inspire, motivate, and educate us on an assortment of topics. My guest today is Rachel Shur from Los Angeles, California. Rachel was diagnosed with a rare and terminal form of leukemia and given a 10% chance of surviving even her first visit to the hospital. Rachel went in an instant from a carefree 26-year-old woman to someone who had to suddenly make the most profound and complex legal, moral, medical, and practical decisions humanly possible. Not only did Rachel not know the answers, often she didn't even know the questions. When Rachel got well, she decided to help others who suddenly find themselves in that position and started the nonprofit United Cancer Advocacy Action Network, UCAAN for short. UCAAN has helped tens of thousands of people navigate the way through the cancer process and to live longer and healthier lives. She is here today to talk with us about her life, her work with UCAAN, and her book, All the Things I Wish I Knew When I Had Cancer. While the topic may sound depressing, the book is as joyous and life-affirming as is Rachel herself. Welcome, Rachel, to the podcast. Really an honor to have you here as a guest on the show.
Thanks, Ron. I'm excited to be here too. And I'm actually in Ventura County, not in Los Angeles.
Okay. Ventura County.
Yes.
I stand corrected. But for the rest of
Okay.
us on the East Coast, it's still
Most people know Los
it's
Angeles.
still
I
the greater
agree.
Los Angeles area for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Rachel, please tell us about your life growing up, your schooling and career before your car accident at age 26, so we get to know you a little better.
Okay. So I was born in Manhattan, New York City. I lived part of my life in New York City, but I also moved a lot because my stepdad was a comedian. And growing up, we were always going from California to New York and back and forth. And so I was always changing schools. But I always had fun because the biggest thing I think I noticed was the laughter, all the joy and the laughter that he brought to other people when he was doing all his comedy shows, which was great. Eventually, we moved back to California and we stayed here. So I went to Sherman Oaks Elementary School in Sherman Oaks and eventually went to junior high and high school in Ventura County. I did do some college, but I've always found myself to be someone who's self-taught in everything that I do. That's how I've learned, and that is something, it's a trait that I got from my late father. He always learned everything just from being in the world. So, really good example. My dad was fluent in 8 languages by the time he was 17.
Wow. Was
Not
he
me, though.
was he
I'm
born
fluent in English.
was he was he born in the
Yeah.
US or was he born abroad?
No, he was born in Israel.
Okay.
Yeah, so as a young child, he was picking up language like nothing because he was constantly meeting people in
Sure,
Jerusalem and
because so many
Israel.
languages are
Yeah,
spoken there.
so he
I
learned a
have it
lot.
on I understand you were born 10 weeks early. Is that true?
I was.
Wow.
I know. You read that from my book.
Yes, I did read the book, and we'll get into the book. The book was very,
I
very good.
was. Yeah, I was 10 weeks early. My mom says I wanted out as fast as possible. It's probably true. But yeah, I was definitely stronger as strong baby. So, obviously, eventually, when I got diagnosed with cancer, of course, I would be just as strong as I was as an infant.
Absolutely. Now, you get into a car accident in 2006. Tell us about that. How injured were you, and what did you learn
Uh,
about your health from that car accident?
Okay, so that's a really interesting story that I tell a lot of people. I got into this crazy car accident. My car was totaled. I actually had no injuries whatsoever. But prior to getting into that car accident, I had accumulated some bruises all over my body, really big welt-sized purple bruises everywhere. No one was beating me up, okay, Ron? It was nothing like that. Back when I was 26 years young, I was clumsy. So like I walk into something and I'd hit my arm and I'd end up with a bruise. And at the same time, I had some really bad headaches, and so I was taking a lot of Advil. And I think instinctually, I just figured the Advil was causing the big bruises all over my body. And so when I got into that car accident, I had to get transferred to the local hospital because I couldn't drive my car. And the local hospital did some tests on me. They didn't notice anything irregular. They just did standard tests of someone in a car accident, right? And they had seen the bruises all over my body. I mean, they were everywhere, huge bruises. They asked me if that had anything to do with the accident, and I said no. And then they said, well, then we suggest you go to a county hospital because they knew I didn't have the money. I didn't have insurance. I had actually recently relocated back to the San Fernando Valley and had started a brand new job. So I had no idea, anything that was going on. And so they said, go to a local county hospital, get checked out because these bruises are not from your accident. They're from something else. So a couple days later, I went to Ventura County Medical Center with a best girlfriend of mine. And let me tell you, for somebody being as sick as I was, my mom tells me this story. She says, for someone being as sick as you were, the nurses took your blood and they didn't know how you were walking around or moving. They
Wow.
said they said that they were shocked that I was able to function because my counts were so low, they were practically deadly. And I had eventually they figured out that I had 85% cancer cells in my body. But what was I doing in the ER? My friend was rolling around on the doctor's chair. We were giggling and laughing, having a field day in the ER. You would have never guessed that I was sick
You
because
know,
obviously I didn't think about that.
my story has a similar parallel. I didn't know I had male breast cancer, and I had fallen earlier in the year, kind of like your car accident, only it wasn't a car accident, but I fell and I hit my chest a few times with a car door. So when I had a recessed nipple, I thought it was from the accident. Little did I know what I really had. So
Right.
yeah, I
That's
can.
actually something very common that people that I've talked to over the years have said. They said that they started having headaches or they had bruising or they had something kind of different like that. And because they didn't really feel sick, they didn't think anything was wrong with them. But
Right.
sometimes I think these random situations like you injuring yourself and then thinking, oh, it's nothing, and then getting it checked out and finding out that it was something. Sometimes it just takes that I have to go get checked out to see what's going on. Yeah, sometimes it just takes those types of instances to make us think about that.
Right. So tell us, what did you learn about your health from that car accident? What were you diagnosed with?
Well, so if I were to be so honest, my mom didn't tell me how sick I was until many years after the initial diagnosis.
Probably a good idea.
Um, when I was in the emergency room at Ventura County Medical Center or the hospital, admitted to the hospital, they told me that I had leukemia. And being 26 years old, all I had heard about leukemia was feline leukemia. I had never met anyone that had had leukemia. So
Right.
I didn't know what it was. And because I've had families members that have had Lyme disease. I said, what is that? Like Lyme disease? And they said, no, it's cancer. So my reaction obviously was crying.
Yeah.
I cried about it and I called
Sure.
my mom and I said, my God, I just got diagnosed with leukemia.
Yeah.
My my mom, as soon as she heard that, she ran over to the hospital with her entire prayer team to pray over me because all I knew of cancer Ron, was what I experienced. My father died when I was 3 years old from cancer. So all I knew about cancer was if you get cancer, you die. And so I didn't know anything else other than that. And I think that's a very, very common misconception that happens with many people that
It
are
happened with
diagnosed with
me.
cancer.
I can
Yeah,
tell. I mean, what kind of,
right?
I mean, my visions when I was told that it was cancer was like, oh, I'm visualizing a bald head, emaciation, uh, chemo, radiation, blah, blah, blah. Not a good scenario. What was your vision like?
Um, yeah, I didn't really have time to think.
Okay.
So no sooner than they diagnosed me, they transferred me from Ventura County Medical Center to the City of Hope. And the City of Hope gave me the first round of chemo, and my body and my lungs went into shock. Fluid went into my lungs, cancerous blood went up into my brain. I suffered a hemorrhage in my eye, and I was put into a drug-induced coma. So, I mean, from the day that they diagnosed me with cancer, everything was very, very fast.
Yeah.
Um, but what I can tell you, because this is all a very serious conversation, and sometimes it's hard for people to hear this, this is what I can tell you. I can tell you that my ride to the City of Hope was nothing short of a party. I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but the the ambulance drivers were certified in crash cart. They had to wait for ambulance drivers that were certified to revive me if I crashed on the 3 hour drive to the City of Hope. So the second set of guys that came in were very serious, picking me up, and I got in the ambulance with them. And I think the first thing that popped in my head, I mean, despite the fact that I had been diagnosed with cancer, was heck, if I'm going to be stuck in this ambulance being with these miserable guys, I'm going to have fun. So the first thing I did is I flirted with the bald man in the back. And so he was laughing. We were flirting back and forth. And then the guy up front, which I always say reminds me of like a Tom Cruise character, turns around and says, "Hey, Rachel, do you mind if I play some K Rock?" And I'm like, "Sure." And so he's blasting the K Rock. I'm flirting with the bald man, dancing in the gurney the entire 3 hours to City of Hope. Meanwhile, my mom is driving with my stepdad, and she's praying to God, "Please, God, save my daughter. Please let her be alive." And I am having a party. And we get out of the ambulance at the City of Hope, and we are laughing, all of us, even the guys that were super serious. And she goes, "Go figure, Rachel's dying of cancer. She comes out of the ambulance having a party," and they're all laughing. And so what she realized at that point was, I was strong from birth, but she knew that no matter what I was facing, I was going to find every way to stay positive, to laugh, to do anything that I could to fight it. So she knew I would be okay despite my diagnosis, which was bad.
Yeah, which I
Yeah.
might add for our audience, Rachel was actually diagnosed, I'm going to try to pronounce it, acute promyelocytic leukemia,
That's pretty
AP,
close.
APL for short. It's rare. It has a 27% survival rate per 100,000 worldwide, and Rachel was given a 10% chance of survival. So
True.
yeah, pretty serious stuff. And the fact that you could laugh on the way to the hospital is great. I mean, because if you had
Laugh
to
all the
do it the other
time.
way, it would have been miserable for sure.
I know.
Now,
You just have to have the right mindset.
yeah, yeah, the mind is 99% of the battle for sure. Now you
Agreed.
go through a 2.5 year battle. Tell us what was all involved with that. I know there was a drug-induced coma, but there was a lot of
Right.
other stuff involved. And go ahead, tell our audience what was all involved.
Okay. So I did want to mention something really quick.
Sure, go
So
ahead.
the interesting thing about acute promyelocytic leukemia is not just that it's a subtype of a main leukemia, which is acute myelogenous leukemia. But in 2006, APL was exactly what you said, 27% survival rate out of 100,000 people worldwide. Nowadays, that same type of cancer, you can actually get into remission. because the treatments are so much better than they were when I was diagnosed in 2006. So you're asking me about all of my treatments of fun fabulousness. I had several rounds of chemotherapy to start, and then they put me on consolidation chemotherapy, which was like once a month. I would go in for a week at a time and get chemo, even though I was already in remission. I was in remission within a month of my initial diagnosis, which shocked all the doctors. They couldn't even believe it. They had never really treated that type of cancer at that hospital. And they had me on consolidation chemotherapy, which is very, very much so the standard at that time. And then eventually they put me on chemotherapy pills. And within 9 months of my remission, I started experiencing these really bad headaches. They were like migraines, but worse,
Yeah.
to the point where I couldn't even function. Most days I would sleep in my room and maybe get up to eat something and go back to sleep, and that's all I did. And I asked my team about it. I said, "What am I supposed to do?" And they said, "Well, we'll prescribe you another pain medication." So after a couple weeks of them prescribing me different pain medications, they finally had me come into the hospital, and they did a lumbar puncture, and they found that my cerebral spinal fluid was actually cloudy, which means there was cancer there. So I don't know if you remember, like the first beginning portion of this whole story, what I talked about is cancerous blood went up into my brain,
Yeah.
probably through my spinal fluid, but
Yeah.
they figured it was gone. Obviously it was semi-dormant, and then it came back and it was there, and it's harder to treat there. So I had to have brain surgery. They had to put a port into my head, which I still have. It's called an Ommaya reservoir. They were administering chemotherapy through my Ommaya. And then eventually they put me on arsenic trioxide, which is, yes, arsenic, as a chemotherapy.
Wow.
And then eventually I had a stem cell transplant in 2008. So, I mean, it was all very, very fast. Diagnosis 2006, the end of, December. Remission January 2007, relapse October, right around my mom's birthday in 2007, preparing for a stem cell transplant in January of 2008, stem cell transplant with my own stem cells in 2008, and then eventually remission. So, I mean, it was pretty grueling considering everything I had to go through, because most of the treatments in the beginning, that was all chemotherapy or chemotherapy pills. But then when I had the stem cell transplant, I had to have two of the heaviest chemotherapies, Cytoxan and etoposide, which completely wipe out your entire immune system to the point where you're practically dead. And they had given me about 11 sessions of total body radiation prior to that. So my body was annihilated. And I was staying alive, through that TPN, which every time I think about TPN nowadays, I think, man, that's just like another way to say sugar water with vitamins.
Yes, but
And we already know sugar.
yeah. There's sugar and protein and what's the other thing in there? There's
Vitamins,
carbohydrates, protein,
lots of
some
vitamins.
vitamins, yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
what, not to be negative or anything, but what are the chances of it coming back? Did they ever say?
Oh, no. So, with APL, once you get to 5 years, that's less likely. Once you get to 15 years of remission after a stem cell transplant, the likeliness is very, very small.
Okay.
I had met other people at City of Hope who had had stem cell transplants long before me, who had had APL or AML, where some of them had came back. But the chances, I mean, I'll tell you, I was very nervous after they told me I was in remission. Even when I reached my 15 years after
Yeah,
my stem cell transplant,
yeah,
I was still nervous. And what my doctor said is, we do these chromosome tests. So interestingly enough, the form of cancer that I was diagnosed with had a defective chromosome. I had a defective chromosome in my body. And so they had a specific blood test that they would do to test for that defective chromosome. And they did it so often. I mean, they did it like generally every 3 months, and eventually they did it every 6 months. And every time they do that test, it just came back clear. So I was fine. And so at 15 years, they said, you don't really need to do these tests except for maybe once a year. And for a while, I was hesitant because I was like, I don't want it coming back. I don't want to be sick again. I don't want to go through all that stuff. But um, my oncologist said, once you get to 15 years of remission from a stem cell transplant where your body is completely revitalized from everything,
Yeah.
he said, you don't really need to focus on that. And that is something that is very common. I mean, when somebody, like, when somebody is diagnosed, they're always worried. What if it comes back? I don't want it to come back. Well, you have to take on a different life, kind of. You have to focus on different healthy things that you can add to your life, how you're eating, what you're doing, if you're exercising, if you're not. And you can't necessarily focus on, well, what if it comes back? Well, what if it doesn't come back? What if you're
Yeah.
healthy for the rest of your life and you have nothing else to worry about? So just change your mind from thinking, oh no, what if it comes back, to what if I'm healthy forever and I have no more problems? And
Right.
that's really what you have to do. I mean, that's the biggest realization of the whole entire experience I had was, if we're constantly worrying and worrying and worrying ourselves that we're going to be sick again, the likeliness of us being sick again is probably higher than the other. If we're focused on staying healthy and not ever being sick again and doing everything we need to keep ourselves safe, then the likeliness of it coming back is probably smaller,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, I had it first in 2019, and then it did come back 3 years later. Uh, and then I did the chemo and the radiation and all that. But I don't dwell on it. I just have the
Good.
mindset you do, you know. Uh, hey, let's move forward and
Agreed.
let's not think about it, Like
I
you said,
know. Oh,
it may not ever come back. Now tell us how having cancer changed your life.
in a lot of ways. I mean, before I was sick, I don't think I noticed a lot of the simple things in life.
Hmm.
I think I was always focused on, how hard can I work? How much money can I make? Not necessarily looking at, it's so beautiful out today, and I'm going to take the longer route home because I want to see the beautiful trees and the color changing of the leaves, and, like all that kind of stuff. Like, um, all the things, it made me realize that all the things I used to do where I missed out on everything else because I was so focused on like one thing that was most important, it made me really open up and get excited about other things. So I'll give you an example. Like my side gig, this little side thing that I do occasionally, is I help a transportation company that I used to work for before I had cancer. And so sometimes my boss says to me, why did you make that beautiful balloon bouquet for that client? You're not getting paid for doing that. And I say, because any way that I can make someone's experience or someone's day even more special by giving them a beautiful balloon bouquet in their car, that is something that I am doing because I want to give something to them. So, like, if you ask my mom, she would say, Rachel is constantly giving to other people. Like
Yeah.
Rachel meets cancer patients at the hospital when she goes for checkups and she gifts them things she makes for them. I'm all about giving back to people. I'm all about helping people. It's not about how much money can I make. It's about how much of an impact can I have. So it's like changing that whole mindset of one mindset to a completely different mindset. And if I told you the reality, I wanted to be a teacher and I never became a teacher. And I never would have ever thought I would run a nonprofit. I never thought that at this point, I would have helped 16,000 people across the United States. I never would have thought that I would have driven across the United States to meet patients that I've helped. I never would have ever could have imagined that this could have been my life, because I was so focused on the little tiny things in my
Sure.
past life that no longer affect me, because that was my past life and this is my new normal, you
Right.
know? So that's the big thing. The biggest thing is, and then I learned that sometimes when we get diagnosed with cancer, people drop out of our lives, and it's not losing friends. It's losing, you're letting go of the people that are not going to bring the positivity in your life, right?
Right.
You want to have people. So I talk to a lot of just friends of mine, because I hear a lot of my friends talk about different things. And I always say, listen, I said, the best way that you can deal with these negative situations is dropping them and surrounding yourself with people that are bringing positivity and happiness and life and excitement to your life, and letting go of those other people. And that's another thing that a lot of patients experience is they're like, oh my God, I lost my best friend. Well, no, you didn't. You let go of somebody who was bringing too much negativity in your life, where you need to be surrounded by positive,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I think all people who've had gone through this, as I have, notice some people drop off that you least expect it, and some people drop in that you never expected. And
True.
yeah, and I've gone through the same thing. And basically, when you went through cancer, like I went through it, you start realizing, I just want to get out of this and help other people. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of car I have, how big my house is,
Right.
how many, shoes I own. It's all irrelevant. If I don't feel good and I'm sick, it's that stuff's meaningless. So you learn, and sometimes things happen for a reason. We may
Yeah,
not know why, but they just
totally
do.
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally true.
Now, tell us the reason you started your own nonprofit, UCAN, UCAAN.
I love telling that story. So, I had, after I was diagnosed with the cancer, I got really, really involved with different organizations, and I was speaking at health expos, and I would go to colleges and high schools and talk about my experience with cancer, and try to reset the way that people thought about different things in life, you know. So I volunteered for a couple organizations, and there were things that I noticed within the organizations that made me wonder if I was in the right place. And that was a constant thing that I thought, am I with the right organization? Am I doing the right thing? And so one of the organizations I was volunteering with, they used to do these different marathons, and I asked if I could go to a marathon to see how me speaking at their events, sharing why people should get involved, how my voice made an impact with when they did these events. And they said, you can only go if you raise the money. And that was something that had almost like a complete disconnect for me. Was, why am I volunteering all my time when I'm still fighting cancer, or when I'm still going through treatments, to help this organization that's not necessarily making me feel like I belong there? They're making me feel like I'm just a puppet making money for them. And so by some crazy chance, I was able to go, and the things that I saw were things that frustrated me. So, they had a fancy hotel that they had the event at, and they do a big dinner the night before, and a fancy lunch the next day, which nobody attends, and they have this expensive hotel which costs $500, a night to stay there. And um, at the dinner that night, the presenter said, how many cancer patients are here that raised money? And I looked around, and I refused to stand because I didn't raise money. I was invited because someone else couldn't go, and everybody said, Rachel, stand up. And I said, no. I said, no, I didn't raise money. I'm not standing up. And and the realization that hit me was, Why did he not say how many people are here that are fighting for someone else who has cancer? How many cancer survivors are here that beat cancer? I mean, the focus was all on the money. And the more stuff I witnessed in that one weekend really made me see something completely different. And then the kicker was when my younger brother, so I was 28, my brother was 18, my younger brother called me and he said, Rachel, all the speaking you're doing for colleges and high schools and these nonprofits, why don't you start a nonprofit? You know what I said to him? I'm not that crazy. But obviously, I might be a little crazy or just more focused and centered on what's important. So, um, when you ask me why did I start UCAN, I started UCAN because I experienced everything and I experienced a totally different perspective than what I ever thought I would experience, right? And so
Yeah.
what I saw is patients, you know, I would talk to these patients when I was at City of Hope getting my treatments or having my checkups, and I would talk to patients and they would say, you know, my social worker isn't really giving me the information that I need. Or they'd say I was just referred to an organization that said that they can't help me because I don't live in this geographic area, or I was just given a book of resources where I had to go through 50 pages just to find one page that could possibly help me. And so the thing that I realized, the accumulation of everything that I had seen and experienced and heard, I came to see that unless there is somebody in the front lines that is really directing patients to what they need, they're just getting a bunch of sometimes gunk, and they don't have the time and the energy to do the research to call all those organizations to try to find help. So my first thought was I was going to create this mega website where patients would go and enter in their diagnosis and then enter in what resources they were looking for. And when the web guys told me it would cost me $50 to $100,000 to build a website like that, and nobody wanted to donate it, I thought, okay, I have to do it differently. Let me rethink it. And what I realized is I had to do customized resources. I had to be like that social worker that was my friend's favorite saying is the social worker on crack, because I'm like the one who goes above and beyond what all the other social workers and all the other people are already doing. So
Right.
I had a whole team of amazing volunteers where over a year and a half I printed up every single organization in the IRS database that had cancer in the name. It was about 150 pages, 100 organizations per page. And I had my team of like 4 volunteers and myself calling all those organizations and trying to find out which of them were helping people and which weren't. And I was able to accumulate after like several years about 2,500 resources
That's
of
awesome.
small and large organizations. So why did I start UCAN? Because every patient that I was talking to was saying, I'm not getting what I need. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
And every organization I'm calling me is telling me I don't qualify. They don't have another option for me. You know, giving me another dead end. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to be the one who said, no, no, that is not okay. I'm going to do everything I can to help somebody who has cancer, which is why I started UCAN, because I was like, this is why it's UCAN, because I want people to know that you can fight this. You can do everything that you need to do to fight this, and you can get the help in many cases. In many cases, you can get the help. Sometimes it's a little harder, as I'm sure you've experienced with male breast cancer. It's probably a lot harder to get more resources and support. But there are different types of cancer where there's not enough support for patients. And I have to think outside of the box when I'm giving them resources just to make sure they're getting what they need. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
in many cases, they're not.
I mean, I can relate to what you're saying because
Right.
I don't mean to demean any large
Me
organizations.
neither. I'm not. That's why I didn't
It
mention any of them.
right, and I wouldn't either, but I did do some work for some and raised money and went to the race or marathon or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. And they put everybody up on the stage, but they didn't put me up there. And then I got, and you know, I just thought to myself, what am I, just a little peon in a big, in a, a blue dot and in a sea of pink is what we call ourselves. And I decided, okay, I'm gonna go away from the big groups, and I'm gonna start advocating for male breast cancer happens.org, which is based out of Kansas City. And then through that, I still wanted to do more. I started this podcast to help
Good for
people.
you.
Yeah, not just cancer people, but people who have other issues too, whether it's mental issues or physical issues. And if you would have told me this 6 years ago, this would have been something I would be doing today, I would have said, I don't think so. But
See?
but here we are, you know.
Yeah. God actually
Here
had a
we are.
plan for you, Ron.
Yeah, somebody had a plan, that's for sure. Now, in 2010, you lose your teeth due to your treatments. Tell us what you learned from that and your advocacy efforts for preventative dental care for cancer patients undergoing chemo and radiation, because this
Okay.
is very important.
This is really important. It actually started happening to me in 2008. So after my last treatment where I had chemotherapy, total body radiation, I was out to dinner with a bunch of friends on a date. And you can imagine, I mean, like the most horrific thing that could ever happen is a tooth cracks at the gum line and the tooth is hanging by a hairs, a piece of the tooth is hanging off, and you're like, what the heck is happening? Uh, and obviously, I mean, like when that situation was happening to me, I was like, are you kidding me? Is this real? Is this really happening to me? I didn't want to start crying in front of my date or my friends. I had to stay stronger because obviously it was like this surprise. Here's a problem.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and so when I went and I asked my radiation techs at the hospital if that was something that was normal. They didn't really have an answer for it. I asked my oncologist. They didn't really know why it was happening. I asked a couple local dentists, and they said, well, that's going to keep happening to you. And if you want it to stop happening to you, you're going to have to pay money to get some new teeth. So by 2010, I had gone to a health expo. I talked to a dentist that was actually going to tell me the truth and the full story. And what the dentist said is the dentist said that because of the radiation, the chemotherapy, it destroys the healthy bacteria in your mouth meant to protect your teeth. And what it does is it starts this kind of like rapid decay because I get dry mouth all the time, and that is a side effect, which I call a direct effect of treatments, right? And
Right.
so that also attributes to it. And so it causes this rapid decay where your teeth start falling out and breaking at the gum line. And I had even met a young kid that was like 3, who was losing her baby teeth. But what her parents realized is her parents saw that even when her new teeth were coming out, they were really brittle, they were breaking apart, and the parents were like, why is this happening to us? And that dentist had explained it to me, and I was shocked. I was shocked that the dentist that I went to before I got radiation and chemotherapy didn't tell me anything. I was shocked that my cancer hospital, nobody at the cancer hospital knew anything. I couldn't even believe it. And what the dentist said to me at that health expo is he said, you could have prevented this with a fluoride tray. Fluoride tray, which has smaller amounts of fluoride in it than the toothpaste we actually use from the store, which is something I actually eventually did a study on. So, and I'll explain that to you in a second. So, when I found that out, I couldn't believe it. And I talked to my best friend who was running the organization, volunteering with me at the time, and I said, okay, how do we make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else? And she said, I don't know. What are you thinking? And I said, I'm going to start a fluoride tray program with various dentists in the LA County, Ventura County area that are going to offer free fluoride trays for patients for free. And so I did. For about 2 years, we had, 3 dentists in LA County, and we had 2 dentists in Ventura County that just did it for pro bono to help, which was great. And eventually, I lost all of my teeth. I was going to one of the local dental schools to have them do restorative care. And this is one of the terrifying photos that I have in my book of the dentist going in and taking all the decay out of my bottom teeth, and my bottom teeth look like puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how bad the decay was. Nobody even knew it was happening. And eventually I had 9 teeth. I had no molars and 9 teeth. And what my friends and I ended up doing in 2011 is we took a trip. I had contacted about 16 cancer hospitals across the country to ask them if they had any system in place or protocol about how to prevent dental decay from treatments. Sorry, sometimes I I sputter my words. Um,
That's all
and
right.
we talked to about 16 cancer centers, which agreed for us to record them. We said we'd love to record this. We'd love to do a video and share it with, our patients and the world so that people know this exists. And Sarah and I drove 9,500 miles over 21 days in 2011. That was the same year that they said the end of the world was happening. So while we were driving across the country, I mean, like towns were flooding, like Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where we were supposed to go, was flooding, and all these crazy things were happening on this God trip, right? Uh, and what was it? 12 of the 16 hospitals bailed out at the last minute. We only got footage for 4 cancer centers, but
Wow.
the 4 cancer centers we went to were amazing. They provided entire packets of information to patients about preventative dental care, what they needed to do before they had chemotherapy and radiation. I mean, it was like eye-opening and amazing. And at the same time, it was frustrating because I was like, how many cancer centers actually give that information to patients? How many cancer centers actually tell patients this is what you need to do before you have radiation? Like nobody, not enough. Okay.
Nobody ever told me that.
Yeah, nobody ever told you that, and nobody
Mm.
ever told most of the patients I've worked with who have since lost their teeth and can't afford to buy new teeth. So
Let me just interject for a second.
yeah.
As far as the radiation doing this, is it radiation for different types of cancer? Or is it radiation that was mostly in the facial area?
Well, it's mainly radiation that's near the head and the neck area.
Okay.
But surprisingly, I have talked to a couple patients who've had radiation lower
Yeah.
where it still has affected them, probably because they've had multiple different types of chemotherapy, maybe because of the level. So when you're talking about the level of radiation that you're getting, it's called the gray.
Yeah.
And if it's super high, even if they're radiating one area, it's possible it can affect other
Okay.
areas.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So it
which
affects
is
really,
scary.
I mean, it affects everybody basically. It could.
It
So,
could. I mean,
yeah.
anybody can get dry mouth from
Oh,
chemotherapy.
yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
part of it.
Right.
And so, the next part of it that's scary is if you if you don't get something like an implant in your jaw,
Right.
your teeth have all fallen out, your body thinks that you have no teeth. And so then you start losing your bone in your jaw, and you need the implant post in your jaw so that it mimics the same thing as a bone from a tooth or a root from a tooth. So, some of the scary things I experienced were dentists telling me that the possibility that I had something called osteoradionecrosis, which is bone death.
Right.
And they were saying, because of the radiation, because of your treatments, because no one told you this, it's very possible that you might start losing part of your bone in your jaw. So I have had patients that have had throat cancer where they've had to have complete reconstructive surgery of their jaws because they've lost so much bone from treatments, but nobody tells them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, so you're asking me, what did I do from learning that? I went and visited the cancer centers. I started that entire program to focus on getting fluoride trays to patients that needed it. And then eventually I started a program through Kaiser Permanente Woodland Hills in 2014. We got a $25,000 3-year grant to
Oh,
provide
that's
more
awesome.
information to patients that maybe couldn't afford to get fluoride trays. And eventually we were offering fluoride topical varnishes, which patients get 3 or 4 times a year to prevent the deterioration. And it's even smaller amounts of fluoride that you're getting in comparison to toothpaste. So, that program is over now, but I don't stop providing that information to patients. Anybody that calls me, I always say, it doesn't matter what kind of treatment you're getting. I suggest you get a fluoride tray. I don't care if you're 80 years old. If you have your teeth still, go get a fluoride tray, because the last thing you need is to be gumming it trying to eat food like I was,
Absolutely. I mean, you're
or
looking
to
at
be in pain.
a guy that's got 5 implants in his mouth.
Yeah,
So,
I have 5 on the top and 5 on the bottom. I have none of my original teeth are
and you're
gone.
talking a lot of money. A
And I'm
lot.
yeah. So when I got these done, they were 35,000.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
And
about
that was a
5,000 a piece,
special
something.
deal for me.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah, it's a
special
lot of
deal.
money. It's a lot of money. But if people actually, I mean, so this is like that scary line of drawing the line of why sometimes information is not provided. Somebody might say maybe information is not provided because the dental industry knows if that patient needs teeth, they're either going to get dentures from their Medicare or their Medi-Cal, which will cover it. But then they don't have that bone
Right.
protecting their jawbone from going. Then they have to get dentures more often, and eventually their bones kind of shrivel. So how do you make it affordable enough for somebody? Most of the time it's not affordable. It's just like patients saying they can't get their insurance payments paid up. They owe $85,000 in insurance payments. How do they pay that? So I have had patients that have said to me, I don't know how anybody thinks I can afford $60,000 or $45,000 for new teeth. I can barely afford to pay my rent.
Right.
And that's great that these dental professionals can make so much money, but I am thankful for the dental professionals that we have worked with through UCAAN that have offered fluoride trays at a discount rate for patients, that have offered fluoride topical varnishes at a severely discounted rate that we have covered over the years for patients that need it. But the reality is, most people, like most really large organizations, will say fluoride is bad for you. You don't need to use that. Well, it's in your toothpaste, and it's in your toothpaste in higher levels than what you would think.
Right. Yeah.
So does
Let
that
me,
answer your question?
it does. Let me ask you one quick question regarding that, and we're going to move on. Uh, the did you search the big organizations out there? Did any of them mention this fluoride tray? No,
No,
they didn't
no.
mention it.
And interestingly enough, after I got the grant through Kaiser, something about my mom noticed is one of the other cancer hospitals had connected with Kaiser, and they were offering an entire program just for head and neck cancer patients that were getting chemo. They were offering them like a fluoride tray or a topical varnish or something like that for those patients specifically,
Yeah,
through that hospital partnered with Kaiser.
yeah.
And mom said to me, I don't know if that has anything to do with you, like you going into Kaiser and talking to all those employees and telling them all these tips that they needed to know about that. I don't know if you had anything to do with that. That's pretty amazing that they're
It
even
is.
offering that.
Right, right.
Yeah. I mean, it
So,
took them that long to offer that. They should have offered that a long time
well, you
ago,
were the
but
you might have been the catalyst. Uh,
hopefully so.
yeah. Let's turn to the book.
You're
Uh,
good.
I read the book. I must tell you that it was very informative, even for me, having gone through the cancer journey myself. What prompted you to write it? And please tell our audience about it and all the wonderful things a cancer patient and their family and friends can learn from reading it that they can't get from other books.
Okay, so as a general thing, anybody who contacts me through UCAN to get resources or information or hope or whatever it is that they're looking for, I have a list of about 15 mini topics of conversation, things that they need to focus on. So many of those are more elaborated in my book, in my new book. So an example is okay, how to understand survival rates. So something very simple I would have on this piece of paper that I send to patients would say, when we talk about survival rates, we're talking about one population of people that has been diagnosed with such and such a type of cancer. They are basing that off of that one population of people that they have tested, and what their survival rate will be. What I explain to patients is, first of all, it's not my cancer, it's the cancer. It's not your cancer, it's the cancer. It's not my tumor, it's the tumor. And this is a common conversation I also have with a lot of patients that reach out to me, and I talk to them and I say, they are basing your statistics, your survival rate, off of statistics that are not you. They are not basing it on your will to fight, your will to survive, your will to do everything that you have to do to beat the cancer, right? So
Right.
that is pretty elaborate explanation, but I took some of the general topics that I bring up to patients, like talking to them about sugar. Eating sugar causes cancer, it feeds tumors, it feeds cancer, it causes inflammation in the body. And most of the time, patients don't know to look at the packaging of the foods that they are purchasing. They're just buying things that are easy. You're better off to buy the groceries that are around, usually the perimeter produce section,
Right.
definitely produce section, fresh fruits and vegetables. But there's like a lot more stuff nowadays that we have to watch out for that we never had to watch out for when we were kids, right? All
Right.
the chemicals and the gassing of fruits and vegetables and the coatings they're putting on stuff. I mean, all that stuff, it's crazy. So I took little pieces of things that I was already sharing with people and just elaborated on them. And then I also dug really deep on the conversation of the preventative dental care. And if you have to get implants, these are the things that you need to know. And if you're looking for support groups, here's some suggestions of support groups that are great. And did you know that sometimes you can, and this might be something that most doctors may or may not like that I say, but when I had the cancer, my mom had me on a pretty fantastic vitamin protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, my doctor asked me why I was so healthy, and I said, I don't know. And he said, he said, what are you taking? And a research person came in the room and they said, Rachel, what are you taking? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about, because obviously, if I had said I was on lysine and CoQ10 and D3 and K2 and all these different vitamins, they would have told me to stop taking it, because what I found out is they were doing a research study on
Right.
me based on the type of cancer I was diagnosed with. So, I mean, it's kind of like a gray line. But I have talked to patients who used alternative treatments in conjunction with standard Western medicine treatments. I've talked to patients who did something very outside of the box, like shark cartilage, in conjunction with standard treatments. I have patients that completely changed their diets, where tumor shrunk and cancers went away. I mean, I have patients that have done everything outside of the box. So I included a lot of just vital information that patients need to know that they're not usually going to get from anybody else. Because most people that are diagnosed with cancer, no oncologist says to you, don't eat sugar. They say eat whatever you want,
Yep.
because we want to make sure that you're not losing any weight.
Yeah.
Well, that's great,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you don't need to eat the sugar, because when they're giving you that TPN, you're already getting the sugar
Yeah. That's
in
for
that
sure. Yeah. There's
TPN, right?
carbohydrate in there. Right.
So, I mean, why did I write the book? I wrote the book because I wish I had a book like this when I had cancer, because I did have my mom. Oh, looks like me. I
Yeah.
did have my mom that said to me, don't eat sugar. And I said, my oncologist is telling me to eat whatever I want. And he didn't even know about the dangers of sugar. He didn't even know. So in many cases, oncologists have been taught 2 to 4 hours of nutrition their entire 8 years of college. They have no idea.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that previous
They
on
they
another
have
program.
right. They have
Yeah.
no idea. So it's not their fault that you're not getting that information. But this is like your
The
Bible.
book. She's holding the
Yeah.
book up for everybody who's not on YouTube. Uh, just hold that up again. All the things.
All the things I wish I knew when I had cancer.
Yeah. With a picture of her, well, a caricature of her.
Caricature of me.
Yeah.
I can tell you that my oncologist wrote a testimonial. My case manager wrote a testimonial. Some of my friends recently read the book and they said, wow, this is super important, informative. There's so much information I never knew. I mean, even people that don't have cancer are getting it. Here, this is a good picture, right?
Yep.
That's me in my radiation harness, partying it out with the radiation techs before getting radiation when I was bald.
Look like you're having a party.
I know, I'm always having a party.
Rachel,
So,
we're
yeah.
running low on time. Can you briefly tell us what programs does UCAN offer for people out there?
I mean, the biggest thing is customized resources based on patient need.
Okay.
I'm not a nutritionist, but I do provide a lot of information to patients about different things they can do as far as eating, especially reading labels. I do a lot. It depends on the area that they live in. People that are local, more local to me in Ventura, LA County, I can go in and meet with them and talk to them specifically about different things. But patients across the country, I can give them all kinds of advice, information, everything you can ever think of.
Okay.
Everything is actually listed on our website. If you go to www.ucaan.org and you click on programs, you can read about all the programs we have. One of the coolest programs we've had over the years is a financial assistance program through products that I make and I ship to patients, and then
Oh,
they sell them to raise money. So
awesome.
we've had a couple of patients where they said, I have no idea how I'm going to pay for my mammogram, but luckily there are cancer organizations that will cover that. At the same time, I've had patients that have said to me, I can't pay for my lung biopsy, and I'm being told it's possible I have lung cancer. And that happened to one of my clients in Tennessee that I helped her raise the money through fundraising of pendants I made her that she sold
That's awesome.
everyone she
That's
knew.
awesome what you're
Yeah,
doing.
so we have a lot of really unique programs, but just looking on the website and then reaching out to me is the best way to
Okay.
find out how I can help.
So for everybody out there, let's just repeat it. It will be in the podcast notes. You want to get a hold of UCAN, and they can help you. It's ucaan.org, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. You've been through a lot of adversity in your life and you come through so positively on the other side. For those out there battling their own adversities, what words of wisdom do you have for them?
You just have to stay strong and you have to stay positive no matter what you're facing. Because while it might seem that things are impossible, because that's what you're hearing from other people, or that's the little side thing you're hearing in your head, it's impossible to even do this. You have to push that stuff, those thoughts away, those people away, like we were talking about.
Right,
And you need to look at it from a different perspective. What can I do to fight for myself? What can I do that's positive? How do I surround myself with the best people? I mean, I talked to somebody about that today. They said someone is driving me crazy. And I said, but you don't have to focus on that. You don't have to focus on the fact that somebody's driving you crazy. Just
right.
step away from it and change your focus onto something that is positive. Watch a funny movie, spend some time with some cool friends, do something other than focusing on the negative. Because if you're always focusing on the negative and you're putting out the negative all the time, that's all you're getting back. So you have to put out the positive so that you get positive back. Right,
Absolutely.
Ron? Good advice.
Very good advice. I will tell people, don't listen to the negativity. Don't listen to somebody's quote opinion. Stay positive. and you will utilize the people that are going to be positive around you. If you have to
Right.
switch doctors, you have to switch friends, do what you have to do, and just stay focused going forward.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Can I mention something, Ron?
Absolutely.
If you guys really want a copy of this book and you have a friend you want it to go directly to, Ron will make sure to give you my contact information. You can reach out to me directly. I offer these books for less through me, and I can autograph it directly to your friend or family member, and then I'll also send you an additional gift for them. So Ron will give you my contact info for that.
Okay, all you have to do is just email me at it's a wrap with wrap at gmail.com. And everybody should know that. That's my contact. You can get it on my website. It's a wrap with wrap.com. I want to thank you so much, Rachel, for being on the podcast and for all the work you're doing to help and encourage others. You are truly doing God's work, and I wish you all the best for the future and success in all your endeavors. Let us know if the podcast can help you in the future. We are here for you. So once again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you. And
The
comments.
best hour of my life.
Well, hey, I'm honored to hear that.
Yeah, I like spending
makes
time
me
with
very
positive
happy.
people.
It makes me very happy. Comments and suggestions, you can email me at it's a wrap with wrap at gmail.com. Our website is it's a wrap with wrap.com. Facebook group, we have a couple thousand people in there. It's a wrap with wrap. We're on Instagram. It's a wrap with wrap podcast. We're on Twitter or X at rapper WRAPPER 130. And we're on YouTube. All the episodes on YouTube. It's a wrap with wrap, the podcast uncut. I want to thank everybody for listening and viewing. Please stay safe out there. And for now, it's a wrap.